You are listening to the Choose Your Struggle podcast, a member of the Shameless Podcast Network. Enjoying the podcast? Consider supporting it on Patreon. You'll get behind-the-scenes looks, sneak peeks, extra bonus content, and best of all, a way to interact with me, your host. You'll also get discounts on merch like tank tops and magnets, and all the other services I provide, like booking me to speak, coach or consult, or even advertise here on the podcast. Check it out in the show notes or in patreon.com/chooseyourstruggle. Plans start at as little as $3.40 a month, and all the money goes right into the podcast. All right, let's get back to the show.
Choose your struggle. Choose your struggle. Spread love. Choose your struggle.
Hello and welcome to another Monday Motivation episode of the Choose Your Struggle podcast. I haven't done one of these in a couple weeks, so I've had special episodes. I haven't really had the time as I've been moving, but now that I'm here, I'm all set up, and we've had a lot going on. And so that's going to be this episode, as the title suggests, and as I mentioned with the intro to Friday's episode, this episode is about what's been happening in this country over forever, but really the focus has been on it the last month. And so I want to start with this analogy. Let's take a step back, right? Let's look at this as if it's another country. If we heard about another country, let's say we open the New York Times or some leading news source here, and they reported that in said country, their police force were averaging more than 3 murders a day. Some of them, the person had a weapon, some they didn't, some the person was, menacing. It doesn't really matter, because as our news often does, it would just be that headline: more than 3 people a day murdered by the police of said country. And that country was also averaging more than 1 mass shooting a day. I think it's like 1.3 or 1.4 on average over the last month. We would all be horrified. We would be aghast. We would be like, oh, those third world countries and their murder problems. We do this all the time, right? We see things that happen in other countries, and then someone forces us to step back and be like, well, but that happens here too. Like the U.S. has invaded other countries for less. You know what I mean? So that's where we are. We are in a situation, those numbers are our numbers. Over the last month, I think it's actually 6 weeks, they were using the time period of the Derek Chauvin trial, which, by the way, recording this on Thursday after that verdict has been read, which I'll touch on in a minute, but they use that period to really show people that, obviously a couple of these get focus, but this is a huge problem. And let's look at those two different situations. When it comes to murder, the police murder, obviously people are always like, oh, well, this one had a weapon, that one. Some of them do. Some of them have weapons. Some of them are in situations where they are menacing police. And that's where it really ties into the other issue of the mass shootings. There are too many guns in this country. I mentioned this on an earlier episode, but there are shocking statistics in places where there aren't guns available like there are here, and where police don't carry guns. I think the most clear is that there have been months where the U.S. had more police-led murder than the entire Great Britain did for 20 years in 1 month. And that's because both sides have guns here, whereas there they don't. It's a lot harder to get a gun if you're just an everyday citizen, and police don't carry them. It's a special force that has guns. Special people are trained to use them, and they have other services. And that's something that we're trying to get here, but police are standing in the way, and our elected leaders are standing in the way. Even the ones that are open to change are calling for reforms. A perfect example, I actually wrote into our local paper here. They were applauding the police for this new program where they are allowed to send people to rehab instead of, or programs like that, instead of sending them to the court. When the police are allowed to make that decision. And as I said, why are police making that decision? They're not trained in health. They don't know if they come across somebody if they are in serious need of rehabilitation or if they are just an average user of drugs. But we are unable to, or too many people, I should say, are unable to take a step back and say, okay, what if change is a complete reimagining of this situation and not change within the box, right? Change within the box in this situation is police should be able to do more things, or police can accompany, like this example of the ride along or the quick response teams, where I went on a ride along with them, and it was a policeman and a health professional and another team member. There was no peer recovery person. There was no one who'd actually been there. And the first person knocking on the door is a policeman. So I went along this entire day seeing how they do this. And at the end of the day, the woman running it pulls me aside and says, so, you're a person in recovery. Can you give us some tips? And I said, do you really want my opinion? She said, yes, I would love your opinion. I said two things right off the bat. Number one, why is it that nobody on this team has been through this experience? That is horrible. You cannot talk their talk. You cannot tell them you've been where they are. Why should they trust you? And they were they didn't understand why their numbers were so low. Like, it wasn't working. And I was like, that's reason number one. Reason number two, if I am actively using, doesn't matter if I'm struggling, in this case, every house they're going to has recently experienced an overdose in that location. So clearly their use has at least graduated to misuse, if not active blown addiction. And I said, it doesn't matter who you are. If you look through your people or look through the window and the person is a cop, you are probably not opening the door. Does not matter. That's the best case, is that you're not opening the door, or you are and being very cagey. The worst case is you do something horrible. You run to the back and start cleaning out your drugs. You try to go out the back door. I mean, something horrible because you just see a cop there, And it's like, why can't they see that, right? I mean, the police, we still want both things. We want the situation where, well, we want people to trust police, but we're also not willing to acknowledge that we are so far past that. And I think a lot of this boils down to a level of defensiveness. As my brother and I talked about on a couple episodes ago, and by the way, someone reached out to me the other day and said that they listened to that episode and they really liked it. And I was like, that's cool. Like, I didn't think that was the best one because it's not really like this podcast is normally. It was just my brother and I, talking about a lot of really important things. And they said, no, like, that was cool. We got to know you better. And I was like, I love that feedback. So thank you to that person. You know who you are. But as we talked about on that, the U.S. is awful at admitting we are wrong. It does not matter. Even the Vietnam War, there are still, that didn't go well, but no, like, the U.S. cannot admit that we failed. And it's why we have so many of these issues that have been going on forever, right? I mean, there are people, I hear this all the time. Oh, why do you have to talk about race so much? Why does it always go back to slavery? There are people still alive who knew slaves. Like, I was reading this incredible firsthand account probably a week ago of a woman who grew up in the home of her great-grandmother who was in slavery. Like, these people are still alive. We are not that far removed from slavery. And yet we still have people who are just like, can we just move past it? No, we can't. Because the U.S. has not once said, we're going to make this right. And so when it comes to these things, right, the U.S. does not do that well. And so when you have things like police killings, they go, okay, we need reform. No, this is a failure. This is a failure. We need to completely reimagine this system. And it's not like that hasn't been done. Other places do this better than us in a lot of ways. And that makes me think of the conversation I had with Nick Hill-Paul, which was the special episode last week, where we talk about how even good people right? I think I'm a pretty good person, and yet there is a lot that I get wrong. There's a lot I need to do better. I credit my wife with for being a person who is constantly pushing me to be better and to reimagine things and to think of things in a different way. A guest from last season, Priya, really, I think that might have been the most challenging moment of that. And when we talk about that, how the first interaction we had, I failed. I did so poorly in that moment because she really pushed me. And it was that kind of thing where it challenged my own view of myself so much that at the time, this was, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, I really was struggling to accept this notion that even good people have a lot they need to get better. And I didn't take it well, and it took me a learning moment, some humility, some reflection to go back to her and say, I'm ready. I did not handle that well. I'm sorry. Let's work together. And too few people have that, right? We all know that person who thinks their shit doesn't stink, as they say, who thinks that they are just God's gift to the world. And by the way, usually those people are the fucking worst. But even those who are incredible still are deeply flawed. And that is the U.S. in a nutshell. We like to think of ourselves as this incredible nation. That is literally our identity, the American dream, right? And we hear this all the time from immigrants who are like, I came here for a reason. So it's sort of this like, if you only want to look for the good, you can find it. But there is nowhere that is, no country, there is no nothing that is anywhere close to perfect. That's just a deeply flawed idea. And yet the U.S. likes to think of itself as perfect. You hear this a lot. This is something I absolutely despise about Joe Biden, is that he constantly says things like, that's not America, when there's mistakes, which, by the way, yes, that is literally us to a T. We are a deeply flawed place, and we need leaders to say that. We need leaders to say, we have a lot wrong with us, because until you admit that, you can't improve. We keep electing these people who, like, their entire platform is America is the fucking best. I honestly cannot think of anything Joe Biden ran on other than that idea, the American dream. That is such a harmful idea, because if you believe that we are just the fucking best, you aren't allowed to say there's anything we can do better. If your entire platform is we're perfect, you can't do better. Our better nature will win out only if we admit that we're flawed. So this is what I come down to when I think of the fact that at the same time that Derek Chauvin was being read the fact that he was guilty and what's going to happen. Like, that was a beautiful moment made awful by the fact that another police shooting was happening at the same time. And this one was a 16-year-old black girl. Like, what the hell? What a perfect encapsulation of America. And then, by the way, Nancy fucking Pelosi puts out a statement thanking George Floyd for being what a horrible thing. Just what a soulless thing to say. And when I read that, I was like, ooh, that's not good. Like, that's hurtful. That's awful. That's a terrible. And then I started reading responses to it. And holy shit, the hurt that came from those words. Like, I don't think if you are in a body like mine, you can look at that and say, wow, that's a really awful thing to say. Why would you ever say that? And then you start reading the words of people whose body looks like George Floyd, and the hurt from these people. Like, I'm like tearing up thinking about this, because the people saying things like, how dare you equate our murder to progress. You know, how dare you say that the loss of his life is anywhere worth it? How dare you? Like, I can't even imagine how hurtful it must have been in that moment to be a black man in this country, to see that on the occasion of a state-sponsored murder, being found guilty for only the 8th time in the last, 21 years, I think I read. And you have one of the most powerful people in this country saying thank you. Oh my God, that just is so soulless. And that is such a problem, that we keep electing these people. You know, I read this stat the other day. Over 90% of Congress is white. You know, clearly we've had one black president. I mean, this country flat out does not care about black people. It doesn't care about poor people. It doesn't care about lower class. It just doesn't. And yet, the one thing you can give the Republicans credit for is they don't pretend. You know, they're soulless. They're horrible. They're just terrible. And they're like, this is who we are, you know. And Democrats, they pretend, and then they let their true colors fly, like Nancy Pelosi's statement. So there's no call to action on this one. This is just for thought. This is just for conversation. I think we need radical change, but to get there, we have to admit our own failings, our own flaws. And that's on gun ownership. You know, I don't care. If you're listening to this, and you're like, well, I'm not going to listen. I don't care. I don't care. There is no reason we need these high-powered rifles. There isn't. You're not a military member. Get the fuck out. And there is no reason that a policeman, that video of the policeman pepper spraying the dude in his uniform, that dude should be just, what the fuck? Like, get police off the streets, right? I mean, if you want to hold on to a small group of police for really horrible situations, you know, I was in downtown Cincinnati when we had the mass shooting there a couple years ago. In that moment, that's what police are for, you know, in those rare occurrences where they can actually do something. But there is no reason they should be doing traffic stops. Why the fuck are you doing a traffic stop? And I once said that to a cop, and he was like, well, what if it turns violent? Yeah, the 1 in 1,000 that turns violent, great. You know, we're going to miss that one. Something terrible is probably going to happen. The other 999 is going to be better off without you motherfuckers on the street. You know, these people should still be alive if a person with a gun was not pulling over someone for having expired tags and an air freshener over or hanging in their window. If a person with a gun does not pull that guy over, he is still alive. And, you know, Deontay Wright's going home to Deontay Wright's going home to his family. That's my thoughts. Get police off the street. We have to have radical change on policing, on so many things in this country, but specifically here we're focusing on policing, on our leadership, and the gun rights in this country. So don't talk to me about reform. I'm not here for it. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. As always, the first person who responds to this is going to get a what am I giving out? What am I giving out for these? Oh, a magnet. Yeah, a magnet and a sticker for the first person, a sticker for everybody else. Let me know what you think. Choose your struggle.